So this sense in which learning and teaching being not the production of an education, right? Grasped by the subject of the student, right? But rather a letting learn, a dwelling and abiding within the sway of learning itself. So teaching, in some senses, first of all, as a teacher, be the one who's learning the most open to the presence of learning. In that sense, it's not a will, but it's a willingness. And as the teacher, right, let's learn. Learning starts to hold sway, right? And the conversations that the teacher has with the students, the moments of silence that fall in between what is spoken, what the teacher says, and especially what the teacher doesn't say. The question that's asked, the question that's inferred, the pacing, the way one addresses and is addressed, and the finesse of that, the dance. In some sense, holding open what ultimately happens via grace, i.e., learning happens. Learning is unconcealed. Yet, there's something very important, I think, that I want to see if we can let learn right now, right? In the addressing of this, in speaking to this, that in some sense, the real teacher seems to necessarily remain anonymous, remain concealed. In fact, the teacher who's playing the role of the teacher, right, may not even recognize when learning is happening, what is actually being learned, and that it's happening, or in what degree it's happening, right? And I'm thinking about a good example of this is in the movie Karate Kid. And for those of you who are my age, who are approaching 50, you'll find it a miracle that there is actually people now. We're now old enough such that there are actually people on the planet that have not seen that movie. So I did not recognize that. I've been in denial of that until recently. So basically, there's this moment, this famous moment where, Daniel's son, right, the young punk who just moved to LA, right, who's getting, beaten up by these karate champions, stumbles into who will become his teacher, Mr. Miyagi, who is like the janitor for the apartment complex that him and his mom just moved into. And to make a long story short, it's like at some point Mr. Miyagi turns out to be a badass samurai, right? In the old sense of the word, in some sense concealed, right? Hidden. Like, I think if I remember right, Daniel actually catches the janitor doing these wicked, Jedi kind of like motions in the background, hidden. And, there's some kind of moment in the movie where I think it was conflictual, right? Where Danielson was, it's like, hey man, I want you to teach me that. And, there was this fight about it or something like that, right? But it was not easy to get, him to admit that he's this badass. So right there, right? So, okay, it's like right there. What is it? Like, there's this sense in which teaching, in the deepest sense of the word, has this quality of anonymity to it, right? This quality of hiddenness. And in some sense, it's like what makes it, what gives it its sacredness, right? And I think we have to really, say that, like, to the degree that education, right, is deep, right, that you become educated in what is of ultimate concern, right? The deepest mysteries of life are precisely those things that one can't ever possess, right? And you start to get these kind of paradoxes that show up, right? Well, I would imagine that the learning and the teaching of these very deep things, to the degree that they're deep, right, in some way has got to mirror, has got to enact this hiddenness, right? These paradoxes, this unpossessibility. And so, part, in this sense, of the teacher's job, right, is to mind the way in which learning remains hidden in the way that it mysteriously needs to be, right? So I think you see this in this movie right from the get-go. And of course, as the movie goes on, he goes over there and he's going to get trained so he can, join the karate tournaments. And so he goes over to Miyagi's house, and right away, Mr. Miyagi, teaches him, has him sand the floor, right? Sand the deck, right? And then wax the car, wax on, wax off, right? Up, down, side to side, sand the floor, right? But he doesn't. Here's the thing, though, right? And then he goes and he ends up doing all these chores all day, right? He spends his whole weekend, right, at Miyagi's house. He goes there to learn karate, and he ends up just doing all these chores, and it basically remodels his house practically, right? And he doesn't tell him anything. Doesn't give him any context for it, right? And so Daniel's just doing this left in the dark, right? And so at some point, as you can imagine, there's this culminating scene where he gets done. He's all fucked up, and his knees are bleeding, and he's got injuries from his skin being rubbed off from all this repetitive stuff that he's doing, right? Wax on, wax off. And he gets frustrated. He's like, hey, man, why am I doing all this? I thought you were going to teach me, and da-da-da-da-da. And then there's this moment, right, where essentially, you can kind of see this. You can predict this. Miyagi throws a punch, and he does the wax on, wax off move, right? And you see this incredible, moment of unconcealment, right? Like, if this isn't a demonstration of the primordial sense of the truth, the Greek notion of truth as the event of disabscondedness, of unhiddenness, right? It's that moment, right? That particular scene is funny. As I'm talking about it, I didn't really quite think about it in those terms, but that's really what's going on there, right? Is you see this whole time, right? He is actually, without knowing it, he's been deeply training for these in martial arts. And so, after he, basically blocks all of the of Mr. Miyagi's punches, he leaves completely dazed, right? So the question I have, right, I think this is, if anything, I just want to evoke in presence the question, right, the mystery here, and see what it has to say, right? Because what was crucial about that remained hidden from Daniel? Like, in what way was Mr. Miyagi teaching actually letting learn, right? And why is it that it was crucial, and this scene kind of exemplifies, right? There's an analogy for this, right? A metaphor of this. That it be something that was a mystery to him. Oops, it looks like we got cut off there for a little bit. But what was it? What was necessary about that it be concealed and then revealed in that moment? And of course, like all moments of deep aletheia, right? This is the tricky part about aletheia, right? Aletheia is, you want to think that, Aletheia, the lake of forgetfulness, so aletheia, right? The opening up of unhiddenness, right? You want to say that, for years I thought that what that pointed to was the thing that was revealed, like that was where the truth was, is the moment of revelation, like what is revealed. But once you think about it, right, that's not it. It's correct, but it's not true, right? I think the deeper truth of the matter is that in that moment of unhiddenness, of aletheia, right, what is revealed is definitely revealed, but the truthness of the deeper sense of what was revealed was concealment itself. And that's that mood of profundity that one gets hit with, right? Where, you're going along your whole life. You think you're doing one thing, and you're in agony because there's something wrong and you can't figure it out, and then all of a sudden it hits you, right? Oh my God, I've been not seeing what's been obvious the whole time, right? And you see the problem, and then you see, in that moment, you you look back at your whole life and you see that that had been the case the whole time. It was obvious, but concealed in its obviousness, right? Aletheia, right? So the thing that gets revealed, right, and aletheia is unconcealedness itself. It's like hiddenness itself. It's like being as mostly, I don't even know if that's the right way of saying it, mostly in terms of quantity, but you know, that reveal. On one level you have the veil, you unveil it, right, and then reveal, which is also, you again veil it. There's that double meaning that I think is telling of the phenomena. So I think that I want to, like, what is it that's necessary that those chores be hidden to Danielson? And in what way was that crucial in teaching as letting learn? Jeez. The feeling I may have said far too much to say nothing. Literally.